we believe that as landlords or investors in real estate, you've invested for one purpose, to earn good income and passive income. That's hassle-free. You can earn income, like you really sweat for it. You're earning, but my goodness, you start wondering whether it's worth the earning. So our job is to ensure that we use dynamic systems that help run your properties with an emphasis on ethical practices, because we believe for us to have sustainable solutions for property owners, they must be grounded on sustainable solutions, and sustainable solutions must be anchored on ethical practices. So we believe that what we give to you is world-class. What we give to you is standard practice. It is industry practice, and you can benchmark with any industry player, and you'll find that the solution we have given you is profitable for you. Maybe just to Faith, you can share the first slide. Faith, you're with us?
Yes, please. I hope you can view it from your end.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's just an introduction. Then the next slide, please.
Oh, a moment, please. Okay.
Yes. So over and above doing property management, we also do property sales and letting. Sometimes property owners have properties that they want to dispose of or improve their asset base. We help in that area when you want to offload your property, when you want to upgrade your property, you want to move from a single unit, you want to buy more units. We help investors buy property. We also help them. I believe that after you have bought a property, the next thing you want to do is get income in it. And so we help people to let out their properties. We also do valuation. We have an associate firm we work with in valuation. And we are able to do valuation for you if you need to value your property. Especially when you're looking at disposing of your property, or you want to get some financing, we assist in that. We also do development consultancy with friends. Maybe you have some property you want to develop, you want to enhance its value and generate more. And finally, we do rental assessment. We do rental assessment for corporate clients, people who want to take up a huge space. We do that. Some of the people we've worked with are like Kabasit, and when they want to take or you want to take like supermarket space, huge spaces where you need to evaluate what is the cost of rent here and how do we go about it. We also do that. Right. So in our bid to help people earn good rents, last December, we also had a webinar, and that webinar was discussing about how to have your rents on time. In case you missed that webinar and you'd like to see it, we would like to invite you to maybe share with us and tell us that you want to have a recording of the same, and we'll be glad to share it. You can share with us on your email or WhatsApp, and just on the number that was on the webinar post, you can let us know if you would like a recording of that webinar. Okay, so those are the introductions. I don't know what kind of experience we have had. Faith, we can move to the next one. I don't know what kind of experience you've had in costs, keeping your costs down. I don't know if there's anybody here who would like to share with us. What has been your experience in keeping your costs down? Anybody want to share? Muli, you want to share with us what has been your cost? What has been your experience in trying to keep your maintenance costs down? Have they been going up or have they been consistent?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
And maintenance costs are through trial and error. Let me put it that way. Through trial and error, we have managed to source ethical and maybe better contractors who are able to work with us. But prior to that, I can tell you that it is a nightmare. Yes, I've had people come and do plumbing, and the minute he walks away, the place is flooded. I've had electricians. In fact, there's one guy who came, he fixed a shower, and then the water was going into one area and he'd already gone. So by the time he came back to fix it again, you know, it was now another entire, the cost is, it's just enormous. So all I can say is that maintenance can be a nightmare if you don't have the right people to work with.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yes, and I think Molly is going into some of the points we have. Anybody else wants to share what's been their experience before I delve into it? What I'd like to say is that if you have a property and it's well occupied, you need to anticipate that you're going to incur cost and maintenance costs at that. I'd like us to look at our property like a vehicle. Okay. And sorry, just before I do that, maybe I can introduce some of my team members. At Canaan Properties, I don't work alone. I think I've seen Onesimus here. Onesimus, you can hear me? Onesimus, you can hear me? Okay, we have a team at Canaan Properties. I don't think Onesimus can hear me for now. Let me go back. I'll introduce them maybe as we go along. We have a team, a management team that takes care of these issues of maintenance. Maintenance can be a nightmare, like Muli has said, but it doesn't need to be that way. I was saying that I want us to look at our properties as a vehicle, you know, a vehicle that that is being used, and that vehicle is generating us revenue. And I don't know, it's not a private vehicle, it's a public vehicle. Any house or property investment that you have, I'm sure we don't, when we are advertising for people to rent our units, we don't say, I want this kind of people, or I don't want this kind of people. It's actually for public. So when you have a vehicle that you're using, and in this case, I want us to look at our houses as vehicles that, you know, we are giving out there for hire. Can you imagine a public vehicle that is out there for hire? And like any good vehicle, it will need service. So the first thing that we need to do is create a service schedule. A service schedule will create for us it will create for us a consistent way of ensuring that the amenities we have in our properties are well running. And what am I talking about? When I say amenities, what amenities am I talking about? I'm talking about things like your electric fence. Do you have a service schedule for your electric fence? Do you have a service schedule for your swimming pool? Do you have a schedule for doing your exterior paint? Do you have a schedule for your cabro paving? And this is what we call preventative care. Preventative care has been shown to limit or decrease the cost of maintaining properties by between 12 to 18%. When you do preventative care in your properties, your maintenance costs will actually come down. Now, you might say 12 to 18% might not be that much for you, But if your costs are, let's say, in a year, 100 or 200,000, you're talking about 40, 50,000. You're talking about a substantial amount of money that is you're eliminating from your cost. And you can actually employ this money. I'm sure we have very other good uses for this money, but you can actually deploy this money to improve the property and generate even more revenue for yourself. I like what Molly talked about, the plumbing and stuff like that. I'll give, live examples of what creating a schedule is like. All of us in our properties, we must do exterior painting. Like for exterior painting, there's no exterior paint that lasts for more than 3 to 5 years. So of necessity, every 3 to 5 years, you need to plan for painting your house on the outside. And if you own an apartment, or if you're in a block of apartments, you need to ensure that, or if you have a single unit where you have a power backup, you have to ensure that the generator, like generators run for a certain amount of hours, just like a vehicle. So the way the generator runs is that just like, saloon cars, maybe after 5,000 kilometers, you service the vehicle. Same thing with the generator. After a certain number of hours, you need to take back that, you need to call in people to come and service your generator. Same thing with lifts. Lifts, there's a service schedule. You have to have a service schedule for your lifts. You have to have a service schedule for your solar installations. You have to have a service schedule for almost each and every amenity. Otherwise, what happens is that you start getting downtime or breakdowns in these facilities. And then you need, when you have those downtimes, and some of them come suddenly, this is where the problem begins. Because when you have that sudden, downtime on your facilities, guess who is calling? You have a very animated conversation with your tenants. And that time, maybe there's a burst pipe, or you have a leaking roof, or you have something that has broken down, or there's a fault in the electrical system. And at this point, the cost of getting that work done is really, 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 it can be quite punitive. But in the properties we have, where we've implemented service schedules, basically there we've had hassle-free, the amenities really run without any hiccup. And we have basically about 95% of the time where those amenities are serviced and serviced regularly, we don't have downtime. It's almost, you can almost say that the downtime has been eliminated. And when you eliminate downtime, you also remove the risk of your rent. Tenants are very good at finding excuses for not paying rent. And one of the excuses they have is this was not working, that was not working. But when you service these things, then you can be confident that you will have minimal or reduced downtime. So maybe then you're asking, I've talked about lifts, I've talked about swimming pools, I've talked about generators, and you have a single unit. So you're wondering, what service schedule can I have for my single unit where I don't have a generator, I don't have a swimming pool, I don't have any of that? What we do at Canaan Properties is that we ensure that every year we inspect the properties that we manage and look for the structural things or the things that concern the landlord. We look at your fence, we look at the roof, we look at the gate, we look at whether there are cracks on the walls, we look at the doors, and we look at the normal wear and tear. And then we write a report to our landlords and tell them, hey, you know what? The roof has started leaking in this place. Or there's a wall on the perimeter, there's a crack on the perimeter wall. Or there's, we mention the different things and create a service schedule so that even if you have one unit in South B, for example, you have one unit in South C, or you have one unit, that unit, you can be confident that we will not surprise you with a huge bill and tell you, hey, you know what, you need to pull down this section of the roof or that section, or you need to bring down the perimeter wall. No, we have annual reports, which we do for our landlords. And that way you create a service schedule. For the areas which we manage, the common areas where people have apartments and flats, we actually have these service schedules. And not only do we have the service schedules, we ensure that those service providers actually come and do it. Because you can have people who are just telling you that they are going to do it, but they don't actually do it. So the first thing we must do, all of us as landlords, is create a service schedule. If you have one unit, if you have an apartment, if you have a block of apartments, especially if you have a block of apartments, my friend, you need to create a service schedule. You need to create a service schedule for even things like your borehole, for your biodigester, for your every amenity on that place needs a service schedule. That way it keeps running consistently. I'll talk about then the nugget number 2, reliable service providers. Now, this one, I know the word reliable can be a little bit ambiguous, but allow me to break it down for you. Molly was talking about a plumber who did this and who did the other, and basically a nightmare. Now we are talking about getting companies or technicians to come who service installations that are able to troubleshoot and accurately diagnose the main cause of the problem. You must be able to have someone who can diagnose the root cause of the problem. And they must be so competent in that area and explain it, like they're explaining to a child, with a good measure of certainty, and they must be willing to stake some of their fees to the outcome. I cannot overemphasize this one, that without a reliable service provider, without getting a reliable plumber, without getting a reliable electrician, without getting a reliable person to service your generator, someone to check on your inverter or your CCTV, there's trouble. A good and reliable service provider will never give you, what do I call it? First aid solutions. He'll always, at the worst case scenario, he'll give you a long-term solution and a short-term solution, but he won't give you a first aid one. And what happens is that when you're given those first aid ones, when you're given those first aid solutions, something has broken down. What happens is that when you get a first aid solution, I can assure you within a week, the same complaint is back. And guess who is calling? The tenant. So what happens? You go back to the what? You go back and get what? Another. You say, now this guy conned me. I'm sure, I don't know how many have had that experience. This one conned me. So what I need to do, I need to get another one. And now the problem, you rush again and you get someone else who again is not reliable, who you've not, and that's where the spiral begins. You start incurring costs for people because you have taken people who are not reliable. And this does not necessarily mean that you have to hire expensive service providers. You can actually get people who are reliable and mitigate that. Like, for example, there's a place where there's a property we manage in Kileleshwa, and we have a very reliable person who comes and services the lifts. But what happens with that service provider is that instead of coming on a monthly basis, they come every 2 months to come and service the installation. Now, when you have reliable service providers, when you have reliable service providers, they are able to get to the root of the cause. Yesterday, there's a property that we manage on Ngong Road, a block of apartments. And we started having recurring leaks, water leaks that were affecting several units. We did it once, we did it twice. And we did it several times, but we realized, we are not getting very far with this. So we told the owner, we are not getting anywhere with this. Can we talk to the people who actually install these things? And the engineers came, and within a very short time, they had diagnosed the problem. And coming Monday, we are going to have that whole issue sorted out. So the issue of getting a reliable service provider cannot be overemphasized. And competence can be evaluated. How do you evaluate competence? You evaluate competence by checking what have these guys done? What have these service providers done in previous installations? And I'll tell you, you will eliminate, guaranteed. When you have a reliable service provider, you will eliminate those constant calls from tenants and getting constant calls of threats of not paying rent and all those things. Then you will not have to have the electrician on speed dial or having your you not have to have your electrician on speed dial. You don't have to have all those guys, but you will now have reliable guys who you can call. Allow me to go on to nugget number 3. Nugget number 3 is avoid short-term solutions. Now, very few contractors, when you call people to come and do your work, very few people actually tell you turn down work. When they come to evaluate a problem, I'm assuming that nugget number 1, you've created this a service schedule. Number 2, you've gotten a reliable person. Now, when you get a reliable person, there's no one, even the reliable guys, very few of them will come and tell you, you know what, Tabitha, we can't do this. Every good service provider will give you a long-term and a short-term solution. And usually the long-term solution is more costly than the short-term one. And because sometimes the funds can be low, we usually there's a temptation to go for the short-term solution. Our experience has been that going for these short-term solutions, you've not really dealt with the root cause of the matter. And I know that, it's sometimes, it's expedience, it sorts out the matter for a short while. But in reality, what this guy has not told you is that this short-term solution, we have not dealt with the root cause. We have not found a way to mitigate this thing completely. We've had countless experiences, and there are certain places, there are certain installations that I would tell you, please, if you're given a long-term solution and a short-term one, do not attempt. One is roof repairs. If you go for a short-term solution where you're doing roof repairs, I guarantee you the costs will escalate, because roof repairs escalate. You're going to start getting problems with your ceiling. You start getting problem with light installations and the wardrobes, and it just becomes crazy. So roof repairs, you're given a long-term solution, a short-term one, please go for the long-term one. You will minimize your cost. In the long run, you will be the beneficiary. Number two is plumbing. Plumbing, like my brother said, in fact, when we were talking yesterday with the engineers, you're saying there's a problem of trained plumbers in Kenya, but you can still get good plumbers, and they are out there. So what we need is to get, for plumbing issues, go for the long term. They say water has got no integrity, and water will always find the most easiest way of, finding a way out where it's not tight, it's not well done. Basically, plumbing issues is just to do with water. We need to plug that whole issue. And then number three, the thing that you would not want to risk is electrical works. Electrical works, do not attempt short-term. Three things: in your roof, in your plumbing, and in exterior. Do not attempt short-term solutions. So if what you're saying, maybe, what if it's out of budget? I would say if it's out of budget, do it in phases. I'm sure Engineer Gidiomi I've seen Engineer Gidiomi here, he can tell us that you can actually do things in phases. You can do your roof in phases. You can do those repairs that need to be done in phases. Allow me to move on then to the other nugget, which is number 4. Now, there's nothing worse than getting caught with your foot down. And your tenant is calling you, he's telling you that there's a burst pipe or there's a burst leakage. And, once again, you're there, you're shopping, you're wondering, what do I do? I would suggest that you pre-qualify the people that you want to use. Emergencies and ad hoc engagement of plumbers, ad hoc engagement of service providers can be really problematic. Because what happens is that these guys, and I don't know whether your experience is like mine, fundis will always tell you they can solve a problem. So I would suggest there are certain people that you need to know, and you need to have verified as a landlord. We do that as Canaan Properties. We verify certain people. We verify a good electrician. We verify a good plumber. We verify a good painter, a good carpenter, and a good mason or a good contractor, so that you know, in case, because it is not if the breakdown will happen. For sure it will happen. The question is, when it happens, how do I go about it? What do I do? Because you will definitely get downtime. But if you've pre-qualified these guys, then you're covered. You know that you can easily sort it out. I want us to anticipate that we will have these breakdowns. And when we have these breakdowns, what will we do? We'll get so and so. And that time, the person who you're talking, the person who you've pre-qualified, you've actually seen what they can do, you've engaged them, you've seen they've done for my friend this, they've done that, and you have a good record of them. I would say that if you've bought an apartment, go to the developer and ask him, by the way, who did the installation of plumbing here? Get that same person, because now people own apartments individually. Get the same plumbers who did that installation to come and be repairing for you. It might cost a little bit more, but those guys, since they know how the whole place was set up, those are the guys who will save you top dollar. I'm telling you, when you look at your bottom line, it will be much, much cheaper. There's a reason why we have the Toyota Kenyas and the DT Dobbies, and there's a reason why we have good garages where we take vehicles, as opposed to that guy, the guy in the estate behind there who has a nice Kajuakali shed where you can just go and he does for you a service. As much as that Kajuakali guy can do a service, if if that is the default, you'll have trouble in your house. pre-qualify these guys. And as I said, they don't have to be, they don't have to be top notch. There are still other guys who I would call middle cadre service providers, and they will be able to sort you out. Pre-qualify, and if you have a block of apartments, I would say, go use the same guys the same contractors who built the place. And sometimes you can be a group of you've bought apartments, you're a group of owners, and you've bought apartments from the developer. Go back to him, tell him who was the electrician, who was the plumber, who was the mason, and have these guys form your service providers. In the various installations that we manage, we have actually, where there's a lot of success in maintenance is where we have used these guys, because they know the background history of what happened, and what happened when this was being installed, what did they do, what didn't they do, and they'll really help you. By the time someone comes to troubleshoot a problem in, let's say, an apartment, and they had nothing to do with the construction of it, it becomes a problem. But if you go back to the people who are involved in the construction, you're home and dry. Then nugget number 5. We are living in a very dynamic age, where cheaper and more efficient ways of construction are coming up every day. And we need to adapt to ways of sorting out our issues to be competitive and efficient. It's not just the conventional way of sorting out our maintenance issues that we need to deal with. We need to be more dynamic and broad in our thinking. I'll talk about an example of some apartments, a block of apartments which we manage in Roka. In the Roka area, there's little or no sewage, main sewer line. And what happens is that there are people, they connect the sewer to a soak pit, and it soaks into the ground. Now, there we had done it, we had a soak pit there, and within 2 years, it got filled up. What were we to do? We had to dig another one. And we thought, now we dig another one, solution, sorted out. We've sorted out the matter. Lo and behold, within about a year and a half, it was full again. And you can only do so many, and you don't build apartments on huge pieces of land. It's usually a plot, the 50 by 100, 40 by, they're usually small plots. So what were we going to do? We had to think out of the box. And in a case like that, we had to get a biodigester. The biodigester now was able to take the waste and get clean water from there, which now is easy to dispose of. So we need to think of other ways of sorting out our problems and being innovative. But you see, we can only be innovative if we have reliable service providers, if we have guys who are pre-qualified, people who you can talk with. I'm sure very few of us here are, we don't have too many landlords who are technical or who are engineers or who know what happens in this field. But over time, when you interact with reliable people, they can actually give you solutions that are technical and that they can explain to you. So we need to find innovative ways of dealing with our problems, like in that case of the biodigester. Another example I can give is when you're dealing with leaks. Like when we had this leak that we sorted out yesterday, a good service provider, an engineer, there was a leak in the cabro to the apartments. The engineer told us, we are not going to break this cabro. We're just going to create a surface pump. Now you can imagine the cost of breaking Cabro, looking for a pipe. And here we have a reliable guy. He just told us, you know what? We'll block this pipe and create a new pipe from the borehole to the apartments on the surface and save the cost of breaking and still have water going up. So there are different ways, but you need to have the right guys. You need to have a good service schedule. You need to pre-qualify these guys to avoid that issue of emergency. And you know, like I said, tenants can be very, or let me say, to be fair, let me say that breakdowns can happen at the worst time, when it's the third or the second, and you're anticipating that rent, and you want to go and pay your mortgage, and there goes the water pipe, it bursts and you're in trouble. Ensure that you have good guys. And I thought to give us a bonus here of the tips that we can use. I have a sixth tip for us, which we can use to bring down our maintenance costs. And this one is especially for Faith. We can go on to slide number 6. This one is especially for those who own blocks of apartments. You need to verify genuine complaints and get competitive quotes in order to bring your maintenance costs down. Where people own single units, it's not hard to verify a genuine complaint, because a genuine complaint will come from the tenant, and it's very rare that you have a tenant who is causing problems. They are there, but very few will cause problems when there's none. But where you have blocks of apartments, or you own several units, or you have several properties, and you have a caretaker, you need to watch out when you're getting a complaint and you find that this complaint, you had it the last 6 months. There are things that become, what do I call it, cash cows for the caretakers or the guys who are there. You need to watch out for fraud, because even where you're paying the supplier directly, all maintenance is purchase, and people collude. You don't have to pay the cash yourself. This guy can just go and collect from the other end. And so what I would say is that you need to interrogate when the complaints are brought. You ask, when was the last time I did this repair? You need to ask, what was the scope of work that was done? And then, because it could be a genuine complaint, but maybe the scope of work did not involve, maybe you are dealing with maybe you're dealing with your borehole, and the problem was the pump. So, there's a new problem with the borehole. So this time there's a leak in the pipe. That's different. But if you're dealing with the pump, and 6 months down the line, you're hearing the pump again, you need to ask yourself, what is it here? Why are we dealing with this pump once, twice, thrice? Did the guy diagnose it properly? Is my guy on the ground really telling me the truth? And did he do the work properly? And what is the problem now? Really understand. Remember, we need to get good guys who can explain it to us, because we are not technical people. And then some very basic and simple things, like, can the guy send you pictures of what has broken down? If you have, some residential units, can someone actually tell you, this and this and this is what? Send me a picture. Let me look at the picture, look at it and see, yeah, this is what has broken down. And you need to take pictures before and after the work has been done. Some of us could be in diaspora, like my friend Masharia, and you're being told this and this needs to be done, and so you get you get people to help you do it. But you need to get pictures of when the breakdown happened, how it looked, and how it looked thereafter. We need to verify that. Now, having ascertained that the work is genuine, still, here is a quotation. You're given a quotation, and like, I know not many of us are technical. How do you verify the quotes? I would suggest this. Get quotes, get at least 3 quotes and have them, compare the different quotes. And I'm saying here, compare apples with apples. Like if you get a paint quotation, there'll be varnish, there'll be thinner, there'll be what? There'll be the different items that need to be to be bought. Can you compare the 3 of them? Don't compare quotes if they are different. You see, you cannot compare, and here's where the scope of work comes in. You cannot compare a quote that is different in terms of material with another one. You have to ensure that if, let's say, for example, there are 3 painters, there's Omondi, there's Peter, and there's another one, that the quantities quoted are the same. That's how you compare. Or if it's a plumbing thing, the pipes that are being quoted, are they the same size? And now here, even if you're not a technical person, it's very easy to compare those and see now where you're being gongwad. Faith, you can stop sharing. You can see where you're being ripped off and where you're not being ripped off, and compare these 3. And make sure that the quotes are identical. It's very easy to, when you have reliable service providers, they give you quotes that are identical. Compare, I like saying compare apples with apples. When you see that the quantities that have been quoted do not match, then you can't compare those 3 quotations. The quotations must be similar. Because or even let me break it down. If you're buying 600 grams of bread, you cannot compare 600 grams of bread with 800 grams of bread with a kg of bread. It has to be the same quantity, same quality. And that's the same thing with maintenance. And you see, sometimes fundis are very crafty, where they give you a cheap quote, then it tells you, I hadn't quoted for this, I hadn't quoted for that. And you find that what you thought was cheap ends up being even more than what you thought was the highest quote. But problem is that there was no verification of similar items. Tuko pamoja? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Or have I lost you?
We are here.
Pardon?
And I'm just saying we are here.
Okay.
We are listening.
All right. So thank you, Judy. So now let me just recap. So the first thing is you need to create a service schedule. Ensure that you have a good service schedule for your installations. Number 2, get reliable service providers. Number 3, ensure that you pre-qualify these guys. Avoid short-term solutions. And if need be, budget for them. And then we are talking about embrace new ways. Don't be stuck with the old way of doing something. You can get innovative and new ways of doing the same thing. And then verify genuine complaints and quotes. Of course, I'm assuming here, Munyaw, you have a question. I'm assuming here that we have, differentiated those maintenance costs that are for the landlord and those maintenance costs that are for the tenant. And we have a lease in place that clearly stipulates this. Because if you don't have a lease in place that clearly stipulates these are the costs of the landlord and these are the costs of the tenant, you'll go in a merry-go-round where tenants will come and tell you, come and fix my tap, come and fix this, and yeah. So my assumption is that you have a lease in place. Today we are not dealing with leases, but that's my assumption. Munyaw, you have your hand up. Please ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. I like the concept of a service schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I can picture for example, especially things like your painting. I think painting is one of the main services that need to be done on a regular basis. Whether it's interior or exterior, it doesn't matter. So sometimes interior when people are moving in or out, and exterior every, like you said, 2 to 3 years and so on.
Yes.
But I'm a little bit not clear on what other service schedules that you can do. Because like if it's like your plumbing, I mean, unless it's broken, how would you plan for that? Or your electrical, the same thing, unless it's something which is broken. Is these, in other words, I think my question would be, within the property,
yes,
how many areas are subject or can be subject to a service or a maintenance schedule? Maybe I can only think of paint. So maybe you have others that you can
even your plumbing and your electrical installations can be done, but every 2 years you just have someone come and look at the piping. Is there any problem? That one you don't have to do like annually unless there's a problem. But I would suggest every 2 years have someone just come and look at, especially the plumbing, because you'll see small. It's easy to detect plumbing issues because you'll have some dampness. And
okay, so what you're saying is that for something like plumbing, it's a preventative maintenance where you want to do a walkthrough every 1 or 2 years to look at small problems before they become big ones.
Yes, and nowadays, by the way, like the engineer was explaining to us yesterday, they have damp detectors. There are gadgets that maybe Engineer Gidiomi can even explain to us here. They have gadgets that you can actually walk through and see, like plumbing leaks are very notorious, and they come from the highest place. So where you're seeing it manifesting is usually not the place where it started. So there are some gadgets that can actually detect the highest place of dampness. And that will tell you that's the place you need to sort out. And then you work backwards from the source. Remember, we said that getting to the source of maintenance problems is so key. Not this thing of Band-Aid. Someone comes, you have a leak, and when you've not qualified guys, they have very serious solutions. They have very quick solutions. The guy gives you, nunua pipe pale, nunua boss white, nunua he, you fix it. And I can guarantee you, in a week, the tenant will be on your case. You will have sorted it that day. And there's a bit of relief because now the tenant is not on your case. But 1 week later, my brother, you will have it. You need to detect the source of the plumbing.
Thank you.
I've answered you. Paul,
yes,
you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I think it's still on what Munyao is asking about. And when I look at my maintenance costs over the last year, 2023, I find that 90% were on pumps and plumbing. Actually, pumps.
Yes.
So I have pumps which take water to the top of the roof and distribute it, and I have one that takes wastewater from the biodigester to a soak pit. So I'm either buying pumps, repairing pumps.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering now, this is actually 90% of my repair costs. What has been your experience with pumps, especially pumps? Because these things will break down on Saturday morning when all the tenants do their washing. So you have tomorrow.
Now, pumps, we had a very good experience with pumps, especially those ones of biodigester. Now, there are different calibers of pumps for the biodigester. You have to ensure that, and again, here is where you would really need to go back even when the plumber prescribes a certain pump. You need to be sure of what it can do. In the incidents I was telling you, like the place we manage in Ruaka, we actually had to change that pump twice. And then we had to build a chamber for it. so that the waste does not go inside. Currently, we have built a chamber where the pump is. We've just replaced it twice. But we went back to Davis and Shatcliffe and asked, okay, we've bought a pump, and pumps are not cheap. We need to get a second pump. We went to Davis and Shatcliffe, and we actually got, and we sat down and we said, before we get this pump, can we evaluate what kind of pump do we need? What kind of volume of waste are we talking about? And that's how we solve that problem. So in your case, Paul, of pumps, you'd be surprised if you go to Davis or Shatcliffe, or I can refer you to somebody who can actually tell you now, this is the kind of pump you need for your particular biodigester. And then it needs to be in a certain place within that biodigester. You know, we thought you just get a pump and you put it into the biodigester. No, it has to be in a special chamber. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered you.
Yes, partly, but you find that there is also pumpers which are thrown in what. So you find it can.
Now, what you need to do is you need to have, where the pump is, you need to protect the pump from all the, especially clothing that comes near the pump. You need to have we have to create a chamber, a guard, where you protect the pump from that clothing. That's the solution.
Yeah, or rags and things like that.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the quality of the pump, don't go for a very, it needs to be appropriate for your use.
Yeah,
it needs to be appropriate for your use.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, by the way, now that I've talked all these things, especially in terms of at Canaan Properties, we actually do that. Wait, there was another question, I think, Masharia. Okay, Masharia has asked, how do you handle a long-term tenant, 3 years plus, in terms of repainting and increase in rent? A long-term tenant, this was what I said at the beginning, that I'm assuming that you have a tenancy agreement with your tenants. And in that tenancy agreement, it clearly stipulates what are the responsibilities of the tenant and what are the responsibilities of the landlords. Now, interior painting, like my friend Masharia is asking, that interior painting is always the responsibility of the tenant. It doesn't matter how long he stays. He cannot tell you now, my paint is not looking good anymore in my house. No. That interior paint, and in fact, the day he leaves, he must repaint the house and return it to the way he found it. And my assumption again here is that when he was coming in, you repainted the house and gave it to him in good working order, and he signed somewhere that I have gotten this house in a certain condition. At Canaan Properties, we ensure that whoever is coming into a house actually signs a document. We call it a checklist. Over and above the lease, signs a checklist and says, I have received apartment X with this and this working, or all these installations working, or this and this not working. We ensure that, you know, all the installations are working for the tenant. Then we allow, he comes in. So for him to come and say, I need a repainting, no, that one doesn't happen. Increases in rent, Masharia, come when the lease expires. When a lease expires, there's the option of renewing it, and you can actually renegotiate. But what happens is that just before a month or two, there's usually a notice period of when you can renew a lease. It's usually a month or two, depending on how the lease is stated. Before it expires, you can actually send them a renewal notice and tell them, are you renewing your rent? If you're renewing, this is what the new rent is. And there should be an escalation clause also in the lease. Irene, Check blockages from grass growing on gutters, electrical testers, how much power is passing through. I think that was a comment. Patricia, is it easy or requirement to have a plan of the building so as to enable repair issues to be done with ease? When they are structural in nature, you would require a plan, but not otherwise. There you don't need. Or if there's something maybe in the roof or something, or there's a leakage in the wall and it needs to be exposed and you can't exactly figure it out, you might want to get the plans for that. Munyao, you have another question? Our time, you have a question?
Yes, a very quick one. Yes, it may be time is short. Just to go back to the 3+ year tenant, and then so what recourse does the landlord have, especially with a problem tenant? I'm sure many people have met those, and who now are kind of trying to ride out their deposit and therefore leave you holding the bag in terms of your painting and all the other things. What recourse does a landlord have in that kind of situation?
Where they don't want to pay like the rent.
They want to ride out their deposit. So let's say they have a 2-month deposit. So they want to ride it out so that now, they leave without doing any kind of repair, any kind of, whatever they're supposed to have done, they just take off.
Okay, first, we don't allow that because the deposits are supposed to take care of repairs.
Yes.
Now, we work backwards. I'm assuming first that you have a good tenant, because one of the key things to having a trouble-free tenancy, even when it comes to the end, is verifying the kind of person you're putting in the first place. That's where you mitigate a lot of these issues that come out even at the end. So you need to verify. Now, where they want to sit on that, we call it to sit on the deposit. You must put it categorically in writing that no, we do not, it's not allowed. We do not allow you to sit on the rent. And there are measures that we take. You just do not allow them to leave the premises until they have paid in full. That's how we mitigate that one, because there are people who do not take they don't take notices seriously, or when they write. I saw Shege here, Shege Nganga. He's a lawyer here. He can tell us something there, but you cannot. The tenant has got no right to sit on a deposit. You can actually deny them exit of the premises until they pay their rent in full and do the repairs as required. You can actually do that.
Thank you. This was a problem. You can call it the nightmare tenant, but eventually they left, and so now I was just curious about if that was to happen again. Hopefully, we are able to vet any future tenants. But thank you so much for that explanation.
Okay, I don't want to take any more time. I would like to say that I know there's also the temptation of bringing relatives to. Was there someone speaking? I would also like to say that sometimes people use relatives or friends to do repairs. I wouldn't advise to go down that route, because our friends or relatives might not be conversant with the technical issues of maintenance and repair. And there's hardly anything you can do to a friend or a relative who gets it wrong, but you've incurred the cost. And that's why we'd say at least get a technical person to do it. Don't go for your relative, don't go for your friend. And why spoil a relationship with someone who was trying to help you? And those things come, my friend, you did this, and now you've cost me so much. Get a technical person. At least that one you can hold them to account. But if the best advice I would give you is get a professional like Canaan Properties. We do these things for you. We handle everything right from the onset of onboarding a good tenant, ensuring you have a good lease, and ensuring that you get reliable service providers. You can hold us to account, you can write us, you can, give us your complaints in any way. And I'm sure we will take care and ensure that with our experience, we'll ensure that your property is well maintained, your maintenance costs come down, and your bottom line improves. As we said, ours is to help investors in real estate enjoy good passive income from these properties that you have invested in. I know guys have invested heavily and they require a good return on the investment. If there's no more questions, I think I'd like to end it here and thank you very much. Anyone who lists their properties with us in the month of February, we'll do free fumigation for you as we onboard your properties. There's nothing more, I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending our webinar, and yes, you're free to leave. Thank you very much.